What's going on, squad? Today we're going to finally cover how exactly to program our isometric training into our entire workout program. This is going to be broken up into multiple different parts, so go ahead and look down below and see which chapter in this video applies to your specific interest. And with that, we're going to cover the most annoying part of this entire video, which is the fact that it just simply depends on what your fitness goals are. The first thing we're going to cover is frequency. Let's assume that someone is coming into this with a very simple upper body and lower body split program. The program that they have is going to run them about 3 to 4 times a week, and they're doing upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and they're off 3 days, all right? And this is another thing, because it just depends on what that person is doing, which is why this is kind of a loaded question. So all I can really do is just give examples and try and plug the isometric program into each example as best as possible and as logically as possible. So in scenario A here, that person is doing about, let's say, 6 to 8 exercises on each upper body and each lower body day, running them about, I would say, 6 to 8 exercises, about 45 minutes roughly, with 60-second to maybe 90-second breaks. For the entirety of this video, we're going to assume that it's just overcoming isometric training. Yielding needs to be its own video. The OI, first of all, needs to be first. This is the most demanding part of the entire workout routine. We're working at the highest end of the force velocity curve. This is going to require the most amount of effort from your body. So this needs to be performed first. So what would those exercises be? They would be the exercises that, you got it, we would be doing that day anyway. So for example, if your upper body day looked like chest presses, lat pull downs and rows, bicep curls, shoulder presses, we want to perform those same OI exercises first, and more than likely in a 1 to 2 by 6 format. With the example that I gave, with upper body and lower body being performed twice a week, I would say something like chest press, row, shoulder press, upright row, and shrug. Those 5 exercises performed in a 2 by 6 format at the beginning of the upper body workouts, and then performing the dynamic exercises that will take about 45 minutes. So because of the nature of OI, it's only going to take about 6 to 8 minutes to perform that. So now you're looking at about roughly 50 minutes, 55 minutes of strength training, and then you can go to your cardio. For the lower body day, if your wrist mobility allows, the front squat. If not, the Zercher squat is great. Jefferson squat, hack squat, RDL, and calf raise. Performing all of those and then going into your dynamic lifts, you're going to benefit from something called the immediate after effect, which states that we get a boost up to 20% on our dynamic lifts because our muscles are binary. They either know on or off. And so if we just train our body to contract at maximum force, a lot of that is going to transfer into its dynamic equivalent when it's time to do that exercise. That's why it's important to mirror the isometric exercises with the dynamic so that we really become strong at that exercise. Why? Because of Hebb's rule. Muscle fibers that wire together, fire together. It's a beautiful thing, especially when programmed this way. Lastly, giving us 3 days off during the week, this is more than enough time for our body to recover. There's going to be absolutely zero CNS fatigue because there simply isn't enough volume and enough max effort lifts for CNS fatigue to occur. And that's even with the dynamic training thrown in. If this were an OI program like the Promethean, and if you haven't seen that video or you know what that program is, here's a link right here, go ahead and check that out. That is a very demanding program designed for doing isometrics only. And so that program alone is going to take you about 30 minutes. That's a lot. And then to throw a dynamic on top of that right away, that's a lot. Scenario 2. Now this is where I fall into, and this is your PPL split, or push-pull legs split. The best example I can give is I can simply just give you mine. I work out 90 minutes roughly 4 to 5 times a week. I fall into this category, so I'm gonna give you what I do. Feel free to mix and match and modify to your liking. It's a little different in where I do legs twice a week, but usually it ends up looking something like push, legs, pull, push, legs, pull, legs, push, break, legs. No matter what, I'm getting legs twice a week, and each of my sessions are about 90 minutes long. I'm usually squeezing about 7 to 8 exercises in there. If you want to count the abs, it's about 8 to 9 exercises in there. And all of these exercises are very demanding. I'm lifting heavy weights. It's not to be whatever, it's just the reality of it. I've been lifting for 15 years. I lift heavy weight. So now I have to make sure that my isometric training, I know the value of it. I don't want to not do my isometric training, but I have to make sure that it doesn't end up becoming the straw that broke the camel's back. And now I'm falling into the overtraining because of how demanding it is on the body. And so what I've found works really well for me is to do a 1x6 split 5 to 6 days a week, and it works great. I haven't had tennis elbow in years now. My knees, they're just fine unless I start to get overzealous in the weight room, doing more sets than normal. Then I start to feel an ache, but nothing like the lightning bolts I used to feel in my knees years ago. Like around 2020 when I first started this channel, that's gone. That has been completely eliminated because of training isometrics consistently. And if you don't know why isometrics have great healing properties for the joints, then I highly recommend you watch this video right here. To go back to the 1x6, I want to bring up Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee was so ahead of his time. So he had his own training program where he trained martial arts, he trained his cardio, strength training on his Marcy circuit trainer, and he also knew the value of overcoming isometric training, and he wanted to find a way to get that in there. And so what he did was he used Bob Hoffman's isometric exercises, which back then was power rack, but he transitioned it to his old iso chain in the 1960s, and it worked very well for him because he didn't have a dynamometer on his iso chain. What he did instead was he increased the duration. So he went from 6 seconds ultimately to 12 seconds in the 1x12 for overcoming isometrics. As a result, he became incredibly powerful. If you're on a weightlifting / calisthenics type of split, this is the route that I would recommend you go down. 1x6 to 2x6. When it's time to switch up the progression, that's when we want to start to incorporate switching up the strap, going for double progression. I have a video on single versus double progression, which you can find here. It's an old video, but it's a good one. Lastly, I want to cover scenario C, and that is someone who hasn't trained before whatsoever. As this video continues, I think that most of the squad starts to understand, wow, there can be scenario D, E, F, G, H, I. There's a ton of different what ifs because everyone's coming into training with a different background, different history. I wanted to give answers to some of the most common scenarios. So if someone's coming into OI with absolutely zero training experience, I would highly recommend either beginner program A, B, C, or D, which you can find in our playlist. And the beautiful thing about those are that you don't really need an iso chain or isomax for any of the programs on the channel. It's just that having the digital display helps significantly. So even if you have some type of dynamometer set up, that's fantastic. If you want to jump into something a little bit more intense than the beginner programs, then now we're looking at the Promethean. Now we're looking at 3 days on. I'd even recommend my old Sweet 16 routine that I came up with personally back in 2020. It was a great exercise program. It's a 1x6 format of 16 different exercises, and you're literally hitting the entire body. But because it's a 1x6 format, you can do that daily. For the Dragon Door programs, you can perform those exactly as intended in the book, 3 to 4 times a week. For the Sweet 16, you can do that daily if you want to, because the volume is not that much. Personally, if someone was brand new, I would start at 4 to 5 times a week for the 1x6 format, and then you can start going daily if you wish. After a couple of weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, your body starts to get used to that, then you can start going daily if you want. And what's great about any of these options is the Fen effect. When you finish an OI session, instead of feeling drained like we feel at the end of a dynamic session, at the end of an OI session, don't get me wrong, we're sweating, but about 10 minutes afterwards, we're ready to go again. If you'd like to know exactly why, here's a link right here. Go ahead and check that out. It's a great video. Isometrics are really unique in that sense. Now, I didn't forget about exactly how to incorporate progression. It's just that this video would end up being 52 minutes long, incorporating every single aspect of training. These are just for how to program. If you find yourself in any of these 3 scenarios, a program geared towards beginners, which is focused around upper and lower body splits, a medium to advanced lifters program, which incorporates the tried and true PPL split, push, pull, leg, or someone just coming into training with literally 0 experience under their belt. Now, if you're interested in learning exactly how I program isometrics into my weightlifting routine, then I highly recommend you check out these 2 live streams that I made last year, which have a ton of great info in them, and I'll see you there.